What's up, everybody? I'm Logan Moody. This is The Contrarian. Today I will be talking about a major trend that has been accelerating recently. It's been taking place over the last decade, actually, and that is the trend, ever more increasingly so, of the world leaving the dollar as their means of exchange between other foreign countries and going to something else, going to other means of exchange, whether that be commodity-backed currencies, whether that be what Russia and the BRICS more than the BRICS nations are now creating. This is the major shift that is underway. Arguably more importantly for the United States and other central banks, they are actually currently developing CBDCs to replace their respective fiat currencies when they eventually do become completely worthless, and there needs to be a shift to something new. So today I'll be looking into why this trend has taken place in the first place and what this will look like, especially for the Fed. They've actually announced that they are currently in beta testing for their FedNow CBDC program, and actually they are currently scheduling a launch in mid-2023, so only about a year away from now. So today I'll be taking a look into that. This trend will eventually lead to the dollar being abandoned as the world's reserve currency, and of course this does, looking back in monetary history, the dollar has not always been the world's reserve currency. In fact, there really hasn't been a reserve currency necessarily. It's kind of a newer invention per se. It was previously the British pound. Previously, France had it temporarily. So it's gone between hands, essentially, between central banks, between empires as they've come and gone. First, why is this shift happening? Well, it's happening because central banks, foreign central banks, are no longer desiring to purchase near as many treasury bonds as they had been in the past. With the dollar being the world's reserve currency, that meant that other central banks would be major buyers of US debt and that they would use their dollars to trade with each other. What is now taking place is these central banks that hold large amounts of US debt are actually beginning to turn into net sellers of US debt. They're beginning to use this as a leverage, a tool of negotiation, especially with a country like China. They're actually threatening to dump their US debt, which would have major ramifications for the United States and the dollar. It would cause massive inflation as all of these dollars come flooding back to the United States. It would cause rates to rise very dramatically as all of a sudden there's massive selling in the bond market for the US dollar. So arguably this is a major trend that is currently underway that's not entirely evident, simply due to the fact that with all of the way that the dollar has related to other fiat currencies, the dollar is actually doing very strong in 2022. It's at 20 plus year highs right now on the dollar index in relation to other fiat currencies, as these other fiat currencies are collapsing, whether it be the yen or the euro. The dollar is doing exceptionally well, but that does not indicate what's going on under the surface of the longer term trend of central banks not stepping in as buyers for US debt in any major way to the extent that they were in the past. So this is a major cause for concern, and the Fed definitely knows this by now. And as these countries have indicated, as Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Arab countries, which have now joined in the BRICS currency basket, they've now indicated that they are going to move towards that, essentially a basket of their currencies, commodity-backed currency that they will use as a means of exchange between each other. Now, if you combine all these countries, that's over half the world's population right there. It's a significant amount. It definitely moves a lot of trade away from the dollar, a lot of demand away from buying U.S. Treasury bills. So that is a huge shift away from the dollar. It does indicate that the Fed, essentially at the end of all of this, the Fed will need to step in and buy, a crap load of Treasury bills, and this is something that they effectively know that they will be trapped into doing, and that the dollar will eventually be thrown off of its throne of rule over the fiat currencies that it's had for a while. And so they are actually currently planning, the Fed is currently planning on something to replace the dollar. And they're right now working on their FedNow program. So they acknowledge that this is happening, and they are, I guess, planning, you could say, for the future. This is a press release on the Federal Reserve's own website that occurred just August 29th of this year. Federal Reserve updates FedNow service timing to mid-2023 marks beginning of full-scale pilot testing. So looking at what they are saying, the Federal Reserve banks have narrowed the timing of the FedNow service launch to mid-year 2023, specifically targeting a production rollout of the service in the May to July timeframe. So that's even earlier than where we are now in the year. This further defines the previously communicated 2023 launch window for the anticipated instant payment service and comes as the FedNow pilot program prepares to enter technical testing for the service starting in September. Again, the FedNow service will be accessible to financial institutions of any size, helping broaden the reach of instant payments to communities nationwide. Financial institutions participating in the service will be able to provide businesses and consumers with the ability to send and receive instant payments efficiently and securely. Payment recipients will have full access to funds immediately, giving them greater flexibility to manage their money and make time-sensitive payments. And then you can further take a look on their own website if you want. I'll put the link down in the description to where I found this on the Federal Reserve's website, but they actually have a video in which they talk about kind of the different options that they see their FedNow program fulfilling. So in other words, crypto kind of is the future, as a lot of crypto bugs have said in the last decade, but it's not a very good future. And in case you didn't know, central bank digital currency, it basically gives the government the ability to monitor every single transaction that goes on between every single entity or person, which is not a good thing if you love freedom, if you love anything that goes along with a democracy or what the United States is. That is not a good thing, or it shouldn't be a good thing in your mind, because with that comes the ability for governments to monitor and control every sort of transaction, everything that they don't want you to do or they want to incentivize you to do, they can now accomplish through a CBDC. So if we go to what a CBDC could turn into at its very worst, it could become a situation where not only are you limited in terms of what you can buy, but now the government can effectively do what China is doing with the social credit score and keep track of what you've done in the past, incentivize you to do certain things in the future, discourage you from doing other things. If you're especially disobedient in their eyes, they could cut you off from that entirely. If, for example, if economic conditions are worsening, they can suddenly make your supposed cash in your account a time sensitive to where you need to either spend it or lose it, kind of a scenario. So all of a sudden it gives them massive control over individual freedoms, individual accounts. So it would essentially be limiting the middleman, all of the complexities that have come with the current financial system. It would be limiting all of these complexities to where now it's almost directly from the Fed to you. And if they have concern of what you are doing or what your intentions are, they can then go back and look at all of your payments and go from there, which is scary. It definitely puts the financial world into what kind of George Orwell's 1984 looks like, which is not good. So CBDCs, they can, in other words, they can have massive control over your life. They're not a good thing. So it is not a good sign to see the Fed going in this direction. Now with this FedNow program and with other central banks going in the same direction, whether that be with China, which already has a CBDC, whether it be Europe or Japan, which are also on track to develop their own, it's likely that cash and other alternative cryptos outside of the system become outlawed or also monitored very closely. Now cash is something that would likely go away entirely in this kind of a scenario, at least in the term of the bank issuing cash itself. That would likely go away entirely if you simply just look at the incentive of the central bank with the CBDC, having cash would defeat the purpose of a CBDC itself. So they would not have the incentive to offer what is currently called cash, which is not traceable in any way. In a way, the cash would be antithetical to a CBDC itself. So the idea that there would somehow still be freedom within the CBDC world is very unlikely in my opinion. Now, I could be proven wrong. They might, somehow try to preserve freedom within that realm of a CBDC, but as governments are always trying to do, of increasing their power, I just don't see that happening, unfortunately. Now, I'm not going to try to offer a solution to what people should do in light of the Fed actually, admitting that they are trapped, that they know they are trapped, the dollar is going to end as the world's reserve currency, and that they're actually developing this alternative. That's kind of up to you whether you want to look at actually holding some physical cash or some physical gold, silver, whatever that might be. That could be a good idea, but that's not in my place to speak as to what is best for you guys out there. But I did want to just let you know of this current trend out there. Of course, the US media and the other global media outlets are not talking about this near as much as they should be, because this is a massive shift in global monetary history. Essentially, it is the rewriting of history. But let me know what you guys think about this, the FedNow's program, down in the comment section below. If you like this video, just give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see all of you again at some point.